Hey everyone. Today I want to take you back to August 24th, 2016, when I boarded a Delta Airlines flight from Tokyo Narita to Guam. On that day, I flew Delta Airlines 610. However, this wasn't just another trip. It was a flight that marked the start of a brand new chapter and adventure in my life. After 9 years of living and working in Seattle, I was finally moving overseas. I never imagined that the journey would take me to Guam, but I was really excited for this new adventure to take place. Looking back, this flight reminds me of the transition, the gratitude, and the joy of stepping into the unknown. So, with all that said, let's take a look back at the experience on board Delta 610 from Tokyo Narita to Guam, which is a route that Delta no longer flew as of January 8th, 2018. I arrived in from LA in a heavy downpour, but operations were smooth, no delays, no cancellations. So, after clearing transit, I had about 3 hours before boarding, which gave me time to do some plane spotting. It makes me wonder how significant Delta was back in 2016 at Narita. The airport at the time still had flights to Seattle, Portland, Detroit, Atlanta, and international destinations as Fifth Freedoms to Manila, Shanghai, Singapore, and Taipei. But it was already beginning to suspend routes and shift some service out to Haneda. So it was cool at the time to see the last vestiges of the old Northwest hub at Narita that Delta gained when they merged. Amazing to see that today, Narita is no longer served by Delta. The flight today is operated by a Delta Airlines Boeing 757-200, registered November 821 Delta X-ray, which is still flying with Delta today in 2025. I'd initially booked a regular economy seat, but upgraded to what was then called Comfort Plus. I also had Sky Priority, which meant early boarding, faster check-in, and a little more legroom in 12F, a window seat. Comfort Plus wasn't premium economy, but it already had the makings of it. Our flight today was approximately 1,350 miles with a flight time of 3 hours, 45 minutes. Our flight to Guam today was just under 4 hours. Most of the cabin was filled with a mix of leisure travelers, especially many Japanese tourists, which Guam has always been a tourist hotspot for the Japanese. Of course, there were US military heading to the island because Guam does have a large Air Force and Navy base on the island. And then, of course, myself going to work there in a non-profit religious work type of setting. So, at my seat, Delta had provided a small pillow and blanket, both of which turned out to be useful because I slept for almost the entire flight, which is why you don't see very much video or pictures on my part. Again, I apologize for that. The seat had decent legroom with about 34 inches of pitch, which is about 2 extra inches compared to economy at the time. And the seat width was approximately 17.2 inches. If you remember from my other flight, I'd pre-ordered an Asian vegetarian meal. And I ordered it again for this flight, expecting an actual full meal. Instead, what I got was a small snack box, which contained a simple roll with lettuce and pickled vegetables, a Kit Kat, and some fresh cut fruit. Honestly, I thought this was the most disappointing part of the flight and experience, considering it was marketed as an Asian vegetarian meal. But despite that, the truth was, I was so exhausted and excited from the adventure that lay ahead, starting life in Guam, that I ate it, of course, and then I fell asleep. One moment that stayed with me vividly is the view out the window. As I woke up from my nap, I saw what I considered one of the most spectacular sunsets I've ever seen. The entire sky and ocean glowed with shades of orange, pink, and gold. This was a sneak preview of what I'd experienced on many days living in Guam, that the island had some of the best and most stunning sunsets on Earth. I'd never seen colors like that before. And in a way, it is kind of symbolic that it was the close of my old chapter and adventures of life in Seattle, my home for 9 years, and was one of the places I dreamed of living when I was growing up in Long Beach. And in one other sense, seeing the sunset felt amazing and felt like the perfect welcome to my new life and chapter in Guam. Half a day. We landed in Guam just before 10 p.m. Chamorro Standard Time. And from the moment I stepped off the plane, I already felt at home. So one of the interesting notes at the time was that arriving passengers in Guam stepped off the plane directly into the gate. There was no sterile area for arriving passengers to walk through before getting to customs and immigration. So what normally happened was that as you got inside the terminal, security staff would direct you into corridors made of semi-permanent movable walls, which essentially cut the airport in half to keep departing and arriving passengers from mixing together. The corridors led you eventually to US CBP, and then after clearing that check, you went downstairs to collect your luggage and pass through customs. And so even though I was flying from the US mainland, Los Angeles, to a US territory, Guam, I did my transit at Tokyo Narita. This meant when I arrived in Guam, I had to go through arrival inspection by US Customs and Border Patrol, presenting my passport. And being on US territory, one of the other unique quirks is that all passengers, whether international or domestic, go through Guam customs and quarantine inspection, whether you're arriving from the flight from Honolulu on United or the many other international flights like mine. I wish I could tell you that that greeting you just saw was for me, but I'm not that special. Anyway, the Guam team there did welcome me warmly, and I was filled with gratitude to God and to everyone who'd helped make this dream possible. Looking back on it now, that sunset photo doesn't feel like the end of my Seattle chapter. Instead, I looked at it as the beginning of a life of transitions, a journey of new places, new experiences, and people who shaped me along the way. Even though my time in Guam was shorter than I had imagined, I'm thankful that I got to live that dream, even for just a short season. Thanks for joining me on this reflective trip report. It was a special flight and a special time for me to go to Guam from Seattle, and I'm thankful that Delta Airlines had a hand in this journey. So, a couple of questions for you all to think about, and hopefully you can leave a comment below. So, have you ever flown on Delta Airlines from Tokyo Narita down to Guam? What was your experience like? Or have you ever seen a beautiful sunset while you've been flying down, like what you're seeing in the photo behind me? Either way, I'd love to hear what you thought. And so, if you enjoy these trip reports and reflections, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on videos like this or on my trip reports. And also consider becoming a member of the channel for some behind the scenes access, previews, and more. All right, everyone, you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.